Hello, Glowbusters. Yes, of course they're serious. You do? You have? No kidding. Uh-huh. Oh, they'll cure your globitis this week. Thank you. We got one!
Ladies and gentlemen,
It's the Glowbusters.
What are you supposed to be, some kind of a cosmonaut?
No, we're exterminators.
and now, here's your host.
And welcome everybody to Glowbusters, 15 degrees per hour. Interesting. I am your host, Bob Xanadu60, and we are back for another Sunday live stream for everybody. And today we're going to be on YouTube for a little bit longer than we had anticipated. I do have a couple things I do want to cover on YouTube before we cut over to the Rockfin side. So, hey, bonus for you guys. That's always a cool thing. But other than that, we're going to be talking about several things today. Of course, the reason for the title of the show, 15 degrees per hour, interesting. Obviously, if you don't know that, Jeran and I have been plagued ever since the release of Behind the Curve. What, 3 years ago? God, it's been a long time now. It's been 3 years, I think. Since that was released, and at the end, Jeran making his famous quote of interesting when he was looking at something, and of course, it was completely quoted in miscontext, but all that, and me talking about the fiber optic gyro and 15 degrees per hour. So even though we have explained this before, we are going to absolutely do it again. And this time, I think that maybe we can get it cut out, and we will, send that to people who have, wanted to know the full explanation for it, so they can, send it to their friends who have said, oh yeah, those guys aren't those guys that prove their own, model false, which is really ridiculous. It's so pathetic that they have to hang on to this. It's just beyond belief. But, so we're going to talk about that. We're going to be talking about, our man, Austin Whitsitt, and his, adventures, across the country this week. It's been an interesting week for him, to say the least. And we also have a couple of NASA balloon things that we want to talk about that are pretty interesting. Some old vintage footage that has surfaced, which is pretty funny. So it's just something that I thought I would throw up out there. And let's see, I think that's about it. So we're definitely one other thing we're going to be talking about also is everybody has been sending me emails saying, what happened to Iwar Anon? And like I know, but, I don't know really much more than anybody else does. I did get an email from him, and he did ask for some information. And of course I'm working on that for him, but, it just has to do just strictly with his research. But, basically he has had quite a bunch of things go on. And unfortunately, he's had people in the community attack him, and, same typical crap, people, attacking and calling everybody shills and accusing everybody of stealing their material. And there's one person in particular that does that, but we're not going to highlight them very much on that. But it's just really unfortunate, guys, because, I don't care if people use my material at all. In fact, I welcome it. I want them to use it, even if you use it in a different context than what I use it in, right? If I put it out there and you have a different take on it, so you want to say, well, Bob Nodell says this, or maybe this is what Bob Nodell used to demonstrate this, but I think it works this way. That's okay. I don't care. And I think that if other people do that, that's really not only complimentary to the original people, especially if they're giving credit back. And honestly, I don't even want credit back, but some people are really picky about that. But yeah, it's just amazing how up in arms people get about stuff like that. And, then they wind up, getting a lynch mob together and driving him out of the community. And this is something that I hope did not happen with Awaranon. I still don't know who he is. To me, he sounds a little bit like Dr. Zack, or Decimal Z, but that's about the only thing. He sounds a little bit like him, but I don't think it's Dr. Zack. But you know what? I don't really care who he is either, because he's out there doing some really good work. He's putting out the stuff that he sees fit, and if he happens to use somebody else's graphics, so what? It's like nobody owns anything really like that. I mean, everything is being shared across the community, so. That's just, I'll say about that. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. But so those are the things we're going to talk about today. But before we get there, let's go ahead and introduce our rather small panel today. Today, it's just the three of us. It will be first up, which will be, of course, Jeran from Jeranism. How you doing, Jeran?
Doing fantastic, Bob. Happy to be here. Excited about the show.
Excellent. Glad to hear it. And next up is our man, Austin from Wits It Gets It. Austin, how you doing, man?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
Well, not bad. So you've had one hell of an interesting week, haven't you?
Yeah, to say the least.
Yeah, I know. Well, so I hopefully I should have asked you before, but maybe we could talk a little bit about what happened at Mount Rushmore. Of course, most people saw that. But and then I understand that you got another ticket on at Yellowstone. Is that correct?
Yep. We actually got pulled over in Yellowstone, then written a federal citation. I did.
Wow.
What did they write you up for? Be on the lookout.
Yeah.
So for what? I mean, guys, be on the lookout. Be on the lookout. Guys practicing First Amendment rights. Are you serious? They really? What did they cite you for?
Failure to get a permit. So we had this this other little backup Bluetooth speaker we have. It's real cheap because couldn't even find a Best Buy within 500 miles with that speaker. But so we just had that little backup I have. It's really cheap. And then we stopped by where you get gas in Yellowstone, and I was just saying, we checked the air, etc. And it's still good. And we actually had a bunch of people clapping and coming up and thanking us, and it was less than 5 minutes. Then we started driving through Yellowstone, which is like really big, and 2 miles in, we got pulled over and detained, and then I got federally cited.
Jesus. Unbelievable for not having a permit again.
Yeah, he literally said word for word, you can practice your First Amendment in the park, but you have to have a permit.
Now, did they cite you for the same thing, the CFR 36 CFR 71 or 16, this thing right here? Or do you know?
Yeah, I'm guessing. He didn't even articulate it. He broke like every rule. I have it all documented on the GoPro.
Yeah, I imagine you did. And I'm sitting there looking at this because this is what they cited on you in Mount Rushmore. And I'm looking at this going, no, the park was open. There was a designated area, and it didn't say where it stopped or anything explicit like that. So when you read this, you are perfectly within your rights. And so I'm a little bit lost on this, but I honestly think, you've got to respond. You really do, Austin. I mean, this is so outrageous that, they should not be able to get away with this. They really shouldn't.
I'm suing them.
I hope you are.
I'll take it all the way to the Supreme Court if I had to.
I hope you do. And really, this could not come at a better time, really, because the cops are so out of control. And if they don't get it muzzled at this point, their stifling of the First Amendment, then, we're just going to have a hell of a lot more trouble, in the future. But yeah, you absolutely should sue them for multiple, things. But yeah, it's just crazy. So I'm going to go ahead and show just a couple minutes here of what happened at Mount Rushmore. And this actually was picked up by a channel called Direct D. And it's interesting reading the comments in here, but everybody's looking at it and, requiring a permit. This guy says that would be the First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America. There's your permit, right? It's like, yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, the way the First Amendment starts is Congress shall make no law. That's how it starts.
yeah.
What a
Well,
joke.
maybe, is it Congress that made these CFR? I guess so. So CFR are federal laws, right? So I guess it would have to be Congress that made it.
Well, yeah, you also have the case that went to Supreme Court, Kunz versus New York. It says permits are not allowed to be used to restrict a speaker's rights of free expression, and permits may not be used as a prior restraint on free speech. 8-1 Supreme Court decision.
They're done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're probably toast without a doubt. So, oopsie, what did I just do? Okay.
And what's a free speech zone anyway? That's an oxymoron.
I know, it's ridiculous. A free speech zone? Like, I can
Imagine
only...
just like the very tip of, like, I don't know, Texas. Like, they just put that's your free speech zone, guys. If you want to talk freely, you can go over there. And everywhere else, we have all it's so funny. It's like, no,
That's in front of the presidents, bro. In front of the president's faces. I'm like, so that's Nazi Germany over there? Like, where's the line?
where's the line?
It is unbelievable. I mean, the irony of it happening right in front of Mount Rushmore is just beyond belief, right? It's just absolutely amazing. So, all right, so let's play a couple minutes of this clip, and then we'll elaborate a little bit more, and you can tell us, where we're going to go with this. So here we go.
Do you have an ID?
What's up?
Do you have an ID?
Am I being detained?
Yes. If you fail to identify yourself, you're going to be detained. If you fail to identify yourself, I'm going to arrest you for refusing to identify yourself.
Wow. This is public property, bro.
Brother. If he's not going to identify himself, he's getting detained too.
Thank God.
I'm sorry, Jeran, say what?
I said, thank God you didn't show the part where the crowd cheers, which is just the most disappointing.
Well,
I've ever had in my life.
That's actually coming up. This was his little, preamble, but unbelievable. So let's continue.
So
this video comes to us from Witsit Gets It, and it was recorded off of a live feed. Witsit was out practicing his First Amendment right to freedom of speech when the cops approach him and tell him to identify. I'm not going to tell you too much, but he doesn't identify and he gets arrested. Check it out. Let me know what you think and point out all the mistakes that these police made in the comments. Now, I only took a clip of the full video, so definitely go over to Witsit's page, check him out, comment, and let him know that Direct D sent you.
Oh.
Hello, sir. How are you?
What's up, man?
How you doing now?
I'm doing good.
All right. So we're just coming back.
Yeah.
Want to give you every opportunity. We have the permit paperwork if you'd like to apply for a permit. We have your regulations showing you that this is not an approved area. Would you like to move?
No.
Okay.
All right. Well, so what's the decibel?
So, no, I'm citing you for engaging in activity.
Well, let me see the law.
You need to let him.
Do you know how the law works?
So what I'm asking, I'm going to need your ID.
I don't have to give you my ID. Are you detaining me?
Yeah. Yes, you are.
Okay. For what? What suspicion of what crime?
If you fail to identify yourself, you're going to be detained.
So to detain me, you have to. Actually, to ID me, you have to detain me.
I just have to cite you.
No.
So I'm citing you with 36 CFR 1.6.
Which says what?
For failing to engage or failing to get a permit for an activity.
So can I see this? Can I see the ordinance?
Yes. Over here.
No.
So.
Well, you guys are. Yeah, I don't care if I'm outnumbered by brain dead zombies that go in the house for curfews and lockdowns.
Okay. What I'm asking is, do you have an ID?
You go back in your house. It's past your curfew.
Do you have an ID?
What's up?
Do you have an ID?
Am I being detained?
Yes.
Okay, so suspicion of what crime?
You are engaging in an activity that requires a permit.
Can I see the law
Yes.
then?
Let's go over here.
Why are you trying to move me away from my camera to cite it? You're being really
Can you
weird.
take your camera?
No, you can just show it to me right now.
Here's a whole bunch of information here.
Don't touch me. All right, look.
Just so I have you guys together, you're good together, right?
Come on over here.
Right, you said if we stood right.
This is hilarious.
Fine.
Yeah.
It's both, but then you got your speaker and you got your banner
Yeah.
set up
Yeah.
now.
You guys support this, don't you? The First Amendment being infringed upon?
So setting
Welcome to the
this
death of America.
all of this equipment.
Yay. Let's all clap because our First Amendment's getting...
Only if we're selling.
You guys would have been real good in Nazi Germany. Probably would have been the part of the 98% that voted for Hitler.
So
That's freaking awesome, Austin, that you do that. And, you know, the crowd is at this point, you know, they're being silent after, you know, cheering, you know, basically that they were going to shut you down. And now they're sitting there going, oh, geez, they're being all quiet about it because they know damn well that you're right. You know, say goodbye to your First Amendment rights, you know, say goodbye to free speech. It's over. And, you know, I hope that that really made an impact on them to some level. But
no way. No impact there.
Yeah.
People like that, when you just repeat the mainstream, they don't even understand what free speech would ever be used for. They don't even get it. That just goes right over their head. They're like, what do you mean? I can go talk about how deadly the coronavirus is anytime I want. Yes, indeed you can.
Yeah. So yeah, until they try it. But yeah, it's
just
crazy.
how oblivious you have to be standing at that place in front of what that's supposed to stand for and clapping, you know, it's pretty baffling.
Adoration. Just
it's crazy, yeah.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And, you know, I got to tell you, this is why I love you, Austin. So they have him in cuffs here coming up, right? And they're hauling him away, you know, basically going to take him down to wherever the cars were and all that stuff. And the mic is still on. And Austin, my man, starts telling the cop, wow, do you know that you're so dumb that you have to have your IQ cut off at 105? I was freaking dying. Oh my God. I thought I was going to lose it.
I'm so glad the mic picked it up too.
Loud and clear. Yeah, that was absolutely epic. So, you know, and he's just sitting there, oh yeah, whatever. And I wonder if he thought about that. I wonder if he actually checked that. But I mean, you were just completely lipping off to him, and you know, with good reason, absolutely good reason, because these guys don't deserve any respect. They really don't. They have no idea what they're doing. They were there, and basically, they were doing this with a lot of disdain for you and what you were doing. Maybe it was because the subject matter was flat earth, but you know, whatever it would have been, same basic results. You know, I don't know what other people would be protesting up there about, you know, some of the things maybe that we can't talk about on YouTube, but you know, free speech is free speech, man. And you are up there, you know, fully within your rights. From what I read of that CFR rule, you are absolutely 100% within your rights. You were not doing anything illegally, and you certainly did not need a permit. That's absurd. So, you know, I just don't know what else to say. It's really,
the
really
crazy
bad.
part, bro, is that specific thing has been taken all the way to the Supreme Court already. The fact they even still have the quote unquote rules of free speech zones and you need a permit, you know, like with ambiguous language of if you get the crowd's attention and stuff like this, it's like this has already gone to Supreme Court. It just shows you that they can do whatever they want to. Everyone complies. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter when there's a legal precedent set, right? It's like, I looked it up. Free speech zones always lose. They always lose when someone challenges them in court. Mm-hmm. And the permit issue has already been addressed. You can't use a permit to try to stop someone's right to be heard. And yet they just do it anyway. It's wild.
Well, now you need to go for damages, you know, and you start hitting them where it hurts. And, you know, and unfortunately, it comes from the taxpayers. We get that. But let's get real here. Most of that money anyway that even subsides them comes from the government, who's just printing it up like it's, you know, like it's funny money. It is, basically. So it really, it really doesn't matter. But I think that a message needs to be sent, and that, you need to file suit on them and say, look, guys, what you did was wrong. This is already there. You should have known this. And I have a feeling that they're going to want to try and settle. If you get a decent attorney to go up and hit.
I'm not gonna take it, bro. I'm not gonna. So like, say they drop the charges, I'm just gonna inform them I'm filing a lawsuit, and then if they try to settle, I'm like, no, keep it going up. I want it to go all the way up. Maybe we'll have flat Earth set a precedent in Supreme Court. So
that would be awesome. That would be wow. I admire your lofty goals. I really do. And this, this could be a big blessing in disguise. It really could be. So, we'll just have to keep following it and see what happens. But let me play a couple more minutes of this and then we'll move on. Okay?
So, to detain me, you have to articulate suspicion of crime.
Yes, we've tried. You keep interrupting.
We offered you.
So, can I see it?
Yeah.
You haven't even cited it yet. You haven't cited the ordinance yet. What does it say? Specifically, read it.
I'm not required
Yeah,
to
you
do
are.
that.
Yeah, you are.
Hey,
Negative.
let him talk.
So
Read the ordinance.
engaging
Trying
in an activity requiring a permit.
Okay, so specifically, which part of what we're doing requires the
Using an
permit?
audio device.
Okay, so what's the
Audio,
decibel reading?
Banner.
You can't have it at all.
So can I see the law?
Yes. He's trying to explain this.
I want to see the law.
So what I'm going to need is your ID. I'm going to need you to give me date of birth, state of your auto.
I need to see the law. Are you not listening?
So what I'm going to do.
Under 2.51 and 2.50,
Told
if
me
you're
your
engaging in an
witness.
activity
I'm
that
gonna
requires
Let
an
me just
audio
read it.
device, you need to have a
I need your
permit.
name and date of birth.
Okay, let me read it.
Yeah.
You don't have to ID yourself.
You do
Look
have
at-
to ID yourself.
No, you don't.
If
You're gonna be
fail to ID
fired, buddy.
yourself, You fail to ID yourself.
I was just at the White House doing this, by the way. You guys realize this is the death of our free speech.
Audio disturbances.
Okay? Does it have a certain
There's
decibel?
one. Time out.
Look at him fumble through it. He can't even find
They're trying to
anything
intimidate
that
us,
he's
that's why they
looking
won't show us the
for.
law. I read the
It's just insane. He has no idea what he's looking for. He just knows, well, this regulation's here and it has words, but my IQ isn't high enough for me to understand them, so I'm just gonna, write it down. Wow, unreal.
the craziest part is that they came up to us before we started. I have it documented on the GoPro. And tried to tell us we couldn't do it, and I'm like, okay, cite the ordinance. And in this little gamma with the beard, he's like, he calls his mask buddy over there, and he's like, he said he wants to be cited. So get your ticket book out. He wants to be cited. I was like, I said cite the ordinance, bro, right? and he said he didn't know what it was, but that he didn't have to. I said, yeah, you can't just come up and say whatever you want to. And then he actually told us that we could go over there in the middle, documented. That we can go over there in the middle as long as the sign's not blocking the bench or whatever. We're like, well, we're just setting it up right here. So, okay, cool. I'm like, so am I being detained? He said, no. I said, okay, well, then we're going to go over here. And if you find the ordinance and it specifically says I can't do it, we'll go from there. And he said that he'd get me down in the amphitheater or whatever, like a rushed permit to get me down in the amphitheater. And then he just came up and, that's so they had 20 minutes or more to find exactly what it said. And he still doesn't have it.
And he gave you, so to be clear, he gave you explicit permission then at that point to go ahead and do it until he could find something otherwise?
Yeah, he said we could stand over there with our sign. Like, he didn't specify the amp, right? But here he's saying that the sign's illegal too, right? Like, they're giving contradictory, just like the dude's, mashup at the beginning where he's like, I'm detaining you, or I'm going to detain you if you don't undo yourself. Like, he's giving contradictory statements. It's just ridiculous, but whatever.
Yeah, he has to have, reasonable evidence that you have committed a crime. And not only that, there are, from what I saw and what you said, there were actually places, you showed it on camera, that stated that it was a free speech type of area, right? Well, where exactly does that end, right? What were the other stipulations to that?
It doesn't say, dude, there's nowhere it says, like, this is where you don't have free speech. Nowhere. Like, it just says when you walk into the entrance, it says this park is a free speech protected, or, First Amendment activities are protected here.
Well, that means this park, that means everywhere in it is what that means. So my God, obviously you have a picture of that. I know you do, because I saw it. So you take that, get a decent lawyer and just slam these clowns. I mean, it's really, and I hope they pay off. I hope you you soak them. I really do, because they deserve it. And then you can use that money to really do some good activism, right?
Yeah, for sure. Get some billboards or something. So then the Yellowstone one, the court date is August 19th. So this one, they didn't give me a court date. They're going to mail it, right? They're going to mail it. Then it's going to have a court date. Then they're going to expect you to come all the way back to the middle of nowhere in South Dakota for a mandatory court appearance. And then Yellowstone, they gave me the court date for the 19th. I have to be in the Yellowstone court in a couple weeks.
Yeah. Well, we'll work around that, whatever has to be done. We'll see what we can do and get the community behind, but I'm sure that if it requires a flight from somewhere rather than having to drive, which is kind of ludicrous, then, we could probably crowdfund that or whatever, because honestly, this is something that is for a bigger purpose. And, in the meantime, I would definitely say that you would need to consult with an attorney. And, at that point, I think he's probably going to tell you that you've got a winner of a case here. Absolutely. And, even if it's just as a community-based loan or something like that, I mean, whatever, that's crazy. I would loan the money for it just to see you get out there and get it handled. But, for the time being, you have to play according to their rules until you get them where you want them. And that is under court, under your charges. Right. And then it's going to get interesting.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe a lawyer will take it on contingency or something.
It wouldn't surprise me if they would, Austin, honestly, because, there's definitely damages involved here. I mean, look at the humiliation, the fact that they took your stuff. You completely ruined what you were trying to do out there in the first place, and you are 100% well within your rights. There is liability here. Absolutely, there is. I mean, I'm not an attorney or anything like that, but it's pretty easy to see that they were acting completely illegally. And when cops do illegal things, they can be prosecuted on it too, especially with all the video evidence that you have. You got them dead to rights. You do.
Yeah, you missed some of the funniest parts of the interaction too. When he gets me over there to the car, he's like, "Bend over," and I jerked away from him. I was like, "What?" No, dude. And I was like, "You like this, don't you? You're such a little gamma." And he is like, yeah, you got to bend over. I got to make sure you don't have weapons. I'm like, "I'm not bending over, dude." And then he started like filling all up on me, bro. Like I have weapons tucked in my crotch or something. But the mic, he'd already pulled the mic out by then. But yeah, it was a crazy thing. And then in the car, I was talking reckless to him. He's like, "Oh, you want the AC on?" I said, "Stop acting like you're a nice guy now, Yeah. Shut up." Like, it was just ridiculous.
He just was looking for a pocket knife in between your testicles.
Yeah, straight up, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty pathetic. So, yeah, well, that's what's going on. You've now had multiple incursions, at the police departments, and some, the thing that amazed me is that of all places that I would have thought you would have caught crap would have been in front of the Masonic Hall in Washington, D.C., but nothing, that was incredible.
Completely alone.
Yeah.
But like, that's what's so crazy. Like, if you read the First Amendment, it's so point blank, like, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances.
Yes.
Like, it's so point blank, that I just can't believe they've even been able to write these ordinances. That's the crazy part. In a federal park that we pay to maintain, that this land was actually stolen, right, in the first place.
Yeah.
And we pay to maintain it. It's our property, and yet they can make, laws antithetical to the First Amendment on that property. It's baffling.
It's crazy. In a park that pays homage to the forefathers that brought these, these rules into existence, right? It's like,
exactly.
Oh, the irony. Holy Toledo. So, whatever. All right. Well, it's crazy. And, it sucks that you have to go through this. And, all I can say is that the way that you handle these guys is amazing, because, it's got to be, obviously it's very humiliating to be, standing out there and, these people are freaking clapping, right? Because of what's going on there. And they are in such utter ignorance. It's beyond belief, like you're the bad guy. Like they don't even comprehend that you're out there fighting for them, because pretty soon, what was it, that old story used to go, they came for my neighbor and they came for this person, but, just leave me alone and don't come for me. Well, there's going to be a day that they're going to come for you. So, if you don't stand up now, and we don't stand up now and combat this, based on what our country was founded on, we're in trouble. We're in big trouble, because we just have a big, political problem that's growing in this country, and it's growing by leaps and bounds. It's just scary. And, the police just think that they don't have to answer to anybody. And you would think that they would be better trained than that, but apparently they're not. But then again, that's why they can't have any higher than 105 IQ. So there you have it.
Sure. And like, I have to say, so like, it's just kind of like, there's 4 million genders, and like, no one thinks that, but they're the loudest. It's the same with the crowd. Like, there was a few people that were triggered about what I was talking about. And so they're real loud and they're clapping, but it wasn't a ton of people that were clapping. It was a few people, but they were being real loud. And then you had a couple right by, like, checking the cops, talking about, he's just talking. Why are you arresting him? This is the First Amendment. Then we had someone else come up like, what do you mean there's free speech zones? How does that work? So there were a few people there, which takes a lot more balls, right? To walk up to the cops and be like, why are you arresting him? It takes a lot more balls than to sit in the back in the crowd and clap and cheer like a little gamma. So it was a mixed bag, but just the people that are silent, that's a problem too. I would love to see the day in America where people make a line in front of me and say, no, you can't arrest him for this, right? That's what it should happen. That's what I would do if I witnessed that. Even if I disagree with if someone was talking about NASA, I would still be like, he has the right to say this. So it's just, I don't know. It's a sad day in America, bro.
Yeah, it truly is. So, well, anyway, congratulations on the way you handle yourself, though. And I think that, you are doing an absolutely epic job of that. And, but I got to tell you, the way you were punking on that cop, about having 105 IQ, I swear I was just dying laughing. That was hilarious. So, that made me laugh, and it lightened up everything. Cause everybody noticed that. It's like, God, look at Austin, he's going through this and he's just sitting there punking on the cop, because you knew you were right. And, I think he knew you were right too. I really do. Now, whether or not he thought you were right about him only having 105 IQ, who knows about that? But maybe if he has a little bit higher than 105 IQ, he'll figure out, maybe, who knows? Hard to say. All right.
We'll see. Well, we'll get to see him again in court, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. All right. So, yeah, just talking about the interior. I just want to let this scroll by real quick. So if anybody wants to capture this, they can, and then they can go back and, read it. But here it is. I read it. And then, like I said, when you look at the comments on that video, it appears that everybody also agrees with me that read this, that they had no right whatsoever to, come in like that. So.
Oh, let me just address the whole Chris working for the government thing, right?
Oh, that's right. Yes, I got to hear about that.
Dude. So I keep getting hit up. So Chris raised his hands. He's like, "What?" And so he was sitting there trying to think about it all night. I was trolling him really hard too. I'm like, "You got to tell me if you're a cop, bro." This is so funny. But anyway, in the morning he's like, "Okay, so I figured out the one thing that I think they can be talking about. I took care of my mom." For a 6-month period, the government was actually sending him a check to take care of his mom, right? So the government did pay him to take care of his mom. I don't remember what that's called, but that's the only time he's ever gotten anything from the government. You know what I'm saying? So there you go. For all the crazy conspiracy theorists, yeah, Chris took care of his sick mother. Oh my gosh.
What? That's so weird. That's just bizarre, because I listened to it and I thought, well, that doesn't make any sense, that he would even ask him that. So I thought, me personally, I thought, well, that sounds to me like it was Chris asking the cop how long he had been a Fed, right? And, I was content to leave it at that, but I was sitting there watching everybody going, yeah, well, if Chris is actually working for the government, there's going to be a lot of problems here. And it's like, guys, let me tell you something about Chris. First of all, he has donated this van, this RV, to the cause, and he has put it out there, free of charge, for nothing more than the cost of operating it. And he has been just outstanding. He has supported Austin 100% all the way. And, for him to be some sort of an agent, or for anybody to infer that he is some sort of agent, is absolutely preposterous. So I hope that we don't hear any more nonsense like that. Because, if you're going to make, some sort of a case, and you're going to make accusations, then you better have some sort of a case. And, if you don't want to buy Austin's explanation, well, that's fine. Then go out and do your own investigation. But I've met Chris personally. He's a nice guy. He's really mellow. And he sure as hell is no federal agent. So
No, absolutely not. And what's even the logic there? Like, so the feds were like, man, we need to take care of this Witsit guy. So what we're going to do is we're going to give him an RV so he can travel to U.S. and do his activism that he wouldn't be able to do without it. It's so stupid. It makes no sense.
Oh, God. It's so pathetic. So, all right. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on. Gosh, I got everything all screwed up here. Let me find out where I was. All right. So let's, I want to look at a video that Phuket Word came out with today. And this is really interesting because we've all heard about the Echo satellites, right? And these things supposedly were a balloon that was blown up to be basically 30 meters in diameter, 100 feet in diameter. And supposedly then they were orbiting this balloon at 1,000 miles high, right? And its velocity is going around the Earth once every 2 hours. So, wow. So what that tells us is that it's going about 12,000 miles an hour. Well, no, it's got to be much faster than that, because if it's at 1,000 miles out, it's much, much bigger. So, it's got to be going this ungodly speed. And I should have done the math. I'm sorry for not doing that, but it's got to be going this ungodly speed to be able to go around the circumference of the Earth, or 1,000 miles outside of that, right? Add an additional 1,000 miles onto that once every 2 hours. So, it's going like a bat out of hell. And then supposedly they are bouncing signals off of this because it was purely a passive device. There was nothing active on it. It was passive to the point where all it did was, so what they say they were doing is they would aim this big old antenna at it. In fact, you can see it right here. This antenna, it's a big old microwave horn is what we call these things. And transmit a signal. It hits that 100-foot thing, traveling at 5 miles a second at least, probably more, and supposedly then bounces signals down. Well, I certainly have a lot of questions about that, and we're going to ask them right after we play this video. So let's play a couple minutes of this video, and then we'll talk about it. So here we go.
Hello, Flat Earth researchers, debaters, and debunkers. Being able to track the ISS, the International Space Station, or satellites and see them whizzing across the sky doesn't prove that we live on a globe. You might think it does because apparently they are doing it according to the laws of Newtonian physics, where things going fast enough and high enough above a spherical Earth will perpetually orbit the Earth as they attempt to fall down. So all you have to do really is go and look at the very first satellite that was put into orbit above the Earth by NASA and realize that this was a balloon and that nothing has actually changed since then. So let's see how it's possible to have a balloon going around and around above the level Earth, acting just as we see satellites behaving, and understand that there's nothing about Newtonian physics involved. It is simply these balloons being whizzed around in the winds above the level Earth.
Okay, so first thing I want to point out is what it says here, it says, nevertheless, by proving the concept of relaying radio signals through space and by demonstrating the effectiveness of current satellite tracking and other ground station technologies, they stimulated a great deal of interest in the development of active satellite communications. Well, the first thing you have to talk about is like, what is this, the concept? How is this a concept of relaying radio signals when we're bouncing it? It's not a relay, it's a bounce, right? And it's a bounce that, frankly, if you think about the geometry, right, and just kind of picture this in your mind's eye, this would be where it would be great if I had some graphics for this. But think about this thing whizzing around at 10 times the speed of a bullet at least, right? And then you have this microwave antenna that supposedly is just pointing at it and hitting it, right? And then relaying it down. But how do they know where it's going to come down, especially if it's changing at the rate of 5 miles a second? I mean, to me, this becomes such a fairy tale that this could ever even be done. Bouncing it off of the balloon at 5-6 miles a second, whatever, absolutely preposterous. I can't even imagine that being possible. But
so it says here in this Britannica article, Echo, either of two experimental communications satellites launched into orbit around the Earth by the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, during the 1960s, consisting of aluminium-coated mylar balloons that were inflated after launching. The Echo satellites were passive instruments, i.e., they simply reflected radio waves back to Earth rather than actively receiving, amplifying, and transmitting them. Nevertheless, by proving the concept of relaying radio signals through space and by demonstrating the effectiveness of current satellite tracking and other ground station technologies, they stimulated a great deal of interest in the development of active satellite communication. So every mention of the word satellite here is talking about a balloon. Echo 1 launched on August the 12th, 1960, inflated to a diameter of 100 feet or 30 meters. The satellite was placed in an almost circular orbit at an altitude of approximately 1,000 miles or 1,600 kilometers. At this height, it circled Earth every 2 hours. The first transmissions reflected off its surface were conducted between a terminal built by Bell Laboratories in Holmdel, New Jersey, and another terminal built by NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Goldstone, California. Echo 1 was used for experimental telephone data and facsimile transmissions. Signals were detected in Europe, although no messages were transmitted across the ocean. The satellite remained in orbit for almost 8 years and was visible as a rapidly moving star in the evening skies.
Right. 8 years, okay? And you have to think about this, guys. I mean, imagine if you were shooting like a laser at this thing, this balloon, right? And you happen to catch it at a point in time or a frame of reference that it just happens to bounce back down and hit a specific part of the Earth. Great, okay? But the problem is when you have something that is traveling at, 17, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18,000 miles an hour, or whatever it would have to be traveling at, it would be like trying to hit a bullet, right, with a laser gun, literally shooting across the sky. And then, you've got to catch that reflection coming back down to Earth. So I'm just wondering how they detected this, back on the ground, and what exactly this data proved to them. Because really, when you think about it, it doesn't prove anything. Yeah, you can reflect stuff off of something. That's well known. You didn't have to send a balloon up 1,000 miles to be able to do that. But just the fact that this object has to be going, 5 miles per second or 17 to 20,000 miles an hour completely makes this beyond belief. Well, beyond belief, point blank. It is not believable. So, I don't know why they expect people to believe this, or even, they give you absolutely no specifics. And what's amazing is they're showing this great big huge horn antenna, right? And this is a conical horn antenna that is used in microwave, kind of an old style one, but basically it captures the signal and then routes it down into a much smaller diaphragm, takes it into the waveguide, and then the receiver picks it up. But like many other directional antennas, they are extremely sensitive to being pointed at the exact correct spot, right? If you guys have ever put up a direct TV antenna, right? Supposedly it's hitting some satellite up there, but it's probably hitting a balloon, or it's most likely hitting a bounce off the firmament would be my, estimation. But regardless, it's a very, very, very small window of being able to pick up that reflected signal or that transmitted signal down from, however far away it's supposed to be. Like in the case of the satellites, it's supposed to be like 23,000 miles away. Well, this is only supposed to be 1,000 miles away, but you cannot move this thing anywhere near at a fast enough speed to track an object that's moving, 10 times the speed of a bullet across the sky. It just wouldn't work that way. So I don't know. To me, this is really absurd that they would even say this. And, we've talked about this before, how ridiculous it is. But, when he brought this out today, I was just thinking about it. It's like, God, that is just ridiculous. So let's play a couple more minutes and then we'll move on.
All right. There you go. Seeing exactly the same thing with satellites these days. Echo 2, launched on January the 25th, 1964, was 135 feet, or about 40 meters in diameter. Its purpose largely was one of testing the dynamics of larger spacecraft, though it was also the focus of the first space venture involving cooperation between the USSR and the United States. A radio signal transmitted from the Jodrell Bank Observatory near Manchester, England, was reflected off Echo 2 and received at the Zimenki Observatory near Gorky, Russia, USSR, now Nizhny Novgorod, Russia. The satellite remained in orbit for 5 years.
Right. So when it was received at that station in Russia, and we're dealing with an arm, of geometry where it's moving at 5 miles a second or whatever, it bouncing off of a very small surface, 1,000 miles high. And so that reflected signal is moving like a bat out of where, across the surface. So what exactly did they receive? A blip for less than a microsecond? And if so, I didn't know they had technology that could do that back then. But I mean, again, it just makes no sense whatsoever when you think about it. And of course, they don't ever get into the details of exactly how this works. Even when you go to the Project Echo and you try and, find any technical background on it, it is so absolutely bland and, it's so superficial. They don't tell you anything about exactly how it worked, other than it's supposedly doing these ricochets at supersonic speed, beyond supersonic speed, and they're able to capture these signals back down on Earth. But again, this was just early space propaganda, and it's pretty interesting to go back and review it occasionally, because this again was supposedly the very first satellite in space, and it was nothing more than a balloon. So there you have it. You guys have any comments on that?
Yeah.
All righty then. Well, there we go. Okay. Okay. So next thing I want to talk about is, you guys have heard about gravitational lensing, right? And they tell us that you have this gravitational lensing, that basically what happens is they look out into deep space, and when they do that, supposedly when there's an object there, it distorts the visual optics that they're seeing greatly, okay? And I was thinking to myself, I'm not exactly sure what they're looking at, but the one thing that really I thought was really interesting was on this particular clip of Suspicious Observers, where they're talking about gravitational lensing and also plasma lensing, right? Which, what those really are, honestly, is just, I think we're looking through the firmament and seeing something that's actually distorting. And the graphic that they use here is really interesting. So I'm going to play this just for a minute and see what you guys think.
Burning into the night. Who wants to jump out to deep space next? And we're tackling a major plasma cosmology point about observational reality of the cosmos. Lenses. They are everywhere in the sky, and so many examples are known. But a major disagreement has been about gravity versus plasma lensing, and therefore also magnetic field lensing.
Okay, so he's saying lensing, they are everywhere in the sky, right? So we see this phenomenon everywhere. Well, it seems to me that if we're looking through a crystal or a firmament, or we are actually looking through water in space, right? Wouldn't that also give us a lensing effect very clearly? And the graphic, I think, very much shows that to be the case. But of course, they're not going to put water up there, but or a crystalline firmament that would actually be acting as a lens. But just this little graphic itself is amazing, and what it's showing. It's showing something that we would see if we were actually looking through one of those little magnifying lens glasses. So just something I wanted to point out. When he said that, it's pretty amazing. And of course, they're still baffled with what's going on in the skies and the plasma and all this stuff. And even though I really like these suspicious observers guys, I've listened to him for years. He is so deeply embedded in the heliocentric model. He'll never come out of it. Of course, he thinks flat earthers are crazy. But, some of the stuff he says sometimes it's like, God, Ben, when are you going to wake up? But maybe one of these days that'll happen. But I love the graphic on this and how it was portrayed. And so they call this, like I said, either gravitational lensing or plasma lensing. And the plasma lensing is essentially a heavy magnetic field that's out there. So they're saying it's either happening from gravitational distortion, which is nonsense, or a magnetic field, which makes perfect sense, because even though we've never seen a gravitational field, we certainly do see magnetic fields all over the place. So there's that. All right, and I know I'm whipping through these quick, so because I want to get on to the second part of the show here, but I got a couple more things to cover. So you can stop me if you want to comment on anything, okay? All right, so let's close that, and there's behind the curve. All right, so let me find out where I was going with this. There's that one. Actually, is that it? Oh yeah, this is the other thing I wanted to cover as well. The Level Earth Observer. Let me bring this up. Don't know why I didn't have this up yet. All right, so this video came out today, guys, and this is great because this is a vintage piece of satellite footage, and of course it comes from Level Earth Observer, and this guy is amazing. I love the way he looks at things. He's a crane operator, and he's very, very observant and very logical, and I love his sense of humor, and he's just really funny, the way he identifies this stuff. But so today he's pointing out well, actually, let me just go to this. The satellite that came out years and years and years ago, and this is something that was buried deep. And this isn't an animation. This is supposed to be real, and this is so crazy. It's hysterical. But let's give this a watch real quick, and we'll move on.
Okay, check this out. Not a lot of people know this, that NASA supposedly released satellites around the moon in 1971 during Apollo 15 and 16. And of course, there's a good reason why not a lot of people know this, because when we dig out the old footage of one of the satellite releases, it doesn't age very well at all. So let's have a quick look down here. Essentially, they put two satellites supposedly in orbit around the moon in 1971 and receiving data up till 73. We get an artist's impression of one of the sub-satellites. And like I said, I've managed to dig out a bit of footage. Pretty rare, and there's a reason why it's rare, because it doesn't hold up to scrutiny and it's aged terribly. You've got to laugh as well. Even at the site here, which is NASA, telling us about this incredible achievement from back in the day. Look at the top here. Imagine the universe. This is at NASA's website. Imagine the universe. And then we've got the silhouette of a family on a cannonball flying through the vacuum. Way.
They're
So
probably
NASA
standing
telling
on an
us
echo
we
balloon.
need to imagine all this heliocentric nonsense. We know this anyway. The globe's scientifically impossible, and the heliocentric space which is cited to make the globe a reality, as we're about to see, is shocking at best. Okay, so here's the rare footage of the satellite being released around the moon by NASA in 1971.
Yeah, that looks
dear,
real.
Oh dear, oh dear.
Wow.
Now, there's a good reason, isn't there, that we've not seen this footage, or it's not pushed heavily by NASA or the mainstream media. Let's just come back a smidge. Shocking. Essentially, all I see here, let me pause that for a second. All I see there is some old geezer in a dark room with a drill, with a bent drill bit, and a little spacecraft attached to his bent drill bit, and the cameraman is slowly moving away from, let's say, Fred with his drill as he spins his toy spacecraft around on his wonky drill bit. Look here. Shocking. No wonder this incredible, so-called incredible achievement is not pushed, because it is, or would have been, an amazing achievement putting satellites around the moon. But like I said, when we look at the footage, essentially all it is Fred with an old drill bit in a dark room, spinning a spacecraft around on a wonky drill bit. Ridiculous.
And no
Even
stars.
NASA telling you on their website, imagine the universe, and they put a silhouette of a family on a cannonball going, waving. Clearly ridiculous.
Yep. And no stars, of course, right? So it's just really pathetic. You know, I think this is like the second most pathetic version I've seen. Do you guys remember the first video of when somebody went up in a balloon and they went up really, really high and they were looking up and they had this thing that they broke through to these stars and this funny looking, it almost looked like claymation. Do you remember that?
Taboo has it in a couple of his videos, but yeah, it's one of the funnier things. And those are supposed to be like real stars and stuff out there.
Yeah, they're supposed to be real stars. I mean, it is really pathetic, this older vintage NASA footage. And Jeran, I think that those DVDs, have you ever gotten a chance to watch those DVDs that I gave you, that, you know, somebody gave me at FEIC Canada? Do you remember those?
They weren't VHS, they were DVD?
Yeah, they were DVD.
I think I still have them. I don't know how many I've watched.
Oh, okay. Because, you know, that I still think that there's probably some really good footage in there. I've watched a couple of them, and there's definitely some good footage. But again, it requires a commitment to go through them, you know, and all the time. But there's got to be some rare gems in there, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think so.
Yuppers. All right. So then let's go ahead and bring up Taboo Conspiracies video, which is also very interesting. This is only a 2-minute video, but another one of those, you know, bombshells that, of course, this is one of the reasons why they had to invent the ionosphere, right? Because these transmissions are simply impossible for what they're saying they're supposed to be, right? So let's go ahead and play this and then make comments on it.
On December 12th, 1901, Guglielmo Marconi received a transatlantic radio transmission at a distance of 2,135 miles. With the transmission tower height and elevation added in, at that distance, nearly 640 miles should have been hidden behind the Earth's curvature. 640 miles is enough to hide the United Kingdom if it were standing straight up. That is a very tall shadow. In my previous Flat Earth Fact number 11 video, I described how the World War II German Knickerbein bombing radio guidance system was not initially investigated because English scientists, including Churchill's scientific advisor, stated the curvature of the Earth would block the VHF beams, and so the targeting system could not exist. The advisors were mathematically right, but English lives were lost because the Knickerbein system in fact existed, proving there was no Earth curvature. Likewise, naysayers told Marconi that it would be impossible to send a radio transmission over 200 miles, let alone 2,000 miles, because the curvature of the Earth should have blocked the transmission. Again, the naysayers were mathematically correct, but Marconi accomplished the feat and has been repeated many times at much further distances. Because of Marconi, the ionosphere theory was then fabricated, claiming that the radio waves bounced off of the ionosphere. For Jeran, the explanation is that the radio waves hugged the surface of the water. For Knickebine, since the beams were VHF, the issue has been avoided entirely, as Wikipedia and others have simply lied about the math and said that the Earth's supposed curvature wouldn't have been an issue at those distances. Do you see the pattern here? Repeatable scientific evidence proves the Earth is demonstrably flat. In response, new pseudoscience nonsense is discovered, somehow justifying why the Earth's curvature somehow always evades detection and disappears without a trace. Marconi's 2,000-mile transmission is another proof of the flat Earth.
There you have it. Okay. And I got to hand it to Ben, because these videos, these little shorts are really fantastic for putting out to people that, that are just getting into this. I add most of these actually wind up on the Globebusters 24/7 feed, because you come across stuff like this and it says so much in such a little bitty 2-minute and 12-second video. It's really amazing, and it's really irrefutable too, because it catches them in one circumstance. It is talking about well, they'll make an excuse for this, but this doesn't apply to this particular situation or this frequency band, and so they've had to just completely fabricate this conglomerate of stories of how radio propagation works, right? And the amazing thing about it is, from what we've been able to tell, there seems to be some very specific routes that can be taken. And I think one of them is, bounce off the firmament, for like direct CV, or it could possibly be, balloon satellites. But I don't know. I tend to think that if there is something up there, it would likely have a frequency band that it would reflect down off of. And maybe this is also the same type of frequency reflection that the ham radio operators are supposedly using when they do this EME bounce, although I have still yet to see that actually, come to fruition from anybody. So anyway, that's all I had to say on those. And I just wanted to get the couple chunks in there, because there's all kinds of good stuff coming out in the community. And what sucks, guys, is unless you really know where to go to find these guys, YouTube never promotes this stuff. Obviously, if you search YouTube, the only thing you get back is debunk videos, Professor Dave or whatever, and it's really pathetic. So I try and bring these to your attention, so hopefully you will go there and actually subscribe to these people, which I think a lot of you probably are subscribed to Taboo Conspiracy. But anybody else that I think is really good, I would just like to highlight their work, because it's it makes it a lot easier for you guys to find it. So, all right. So I think that's about it. The only other thing that I had to talk about still before we close out the YouTube side was the Awaranon videos. And guys, I will say, about the Awaranon videos is that it's kind of an interesting situation. What has come out of that? Well, apparently there was a guy that was involved with the FPV Angel group, right? And his name was Elijah Castle, right? And Elijah Castle, for some reason, got in some sort of a tiff with the guy FPV Angel, and then FPV Angel started accusing him of stealing his stuff. And then when Awaranon came out, he started accusing him of being Awaranon and stealing all of his stuff. And again, I don't want to pay a whole lot of attention to this, other than to say that I just want to point out how this can get really convoluted quick. So then we had a third person come in and enter this cluster screw, if you want to call it that, and his name was Ryan Zem. And Ryan Zem was actually a guest we had on Globebusters several years ago, and his channel is called Spill the Truth. And so he had tried to contact Awaranon to see if he could make DVDs and, put them out there and send the proceeds to him. So because a lot of people had contacted him and asked him that, and honestly, we've been contacted for the same stuff, or I have been. If anybody, if we could get permanent copies of this, because everybody was afraid that Iwaranon stuff was so good that it was going to go away, right? And so Ryan actually did that with the best of intentions. Of course, that didn't sit too well with Iwaranon, and he, just asked that he didn't make those anymore. So Ryan Zim is now going to give away the remaining 14 or 15 copies that he has. So maybe if he has some, you can convince him into giving you a copy or something like that. But the problem is here, guys, is it's all fine and good if you share credits and stuff. If you want to give credit back to somebody that you're using their work. That's usually the typical polite thing to do. Some people care about it, some people don't. But the thing that happened here is that, FPV Angel started making accusations about people stealing their work, and it was all their original work. And then ironically, it turned out that all of this work that supposedly FPV Angel was claiming as his own wasn't even his own. And Elijah Castle actually showed that. So it's just, these are the kind of things that get the community all riled up, and it's just really silly, because all it does is hurt the community in the long run. And I just want people to, when they see that kind of stuff going on, to just try and diffuse it and not jump on the bandwagon, kind of like with what happened with Austin and Chris. Don't jump on a bandwagon saying, oh, Chris must be some sort of an operative or agent, anything like that. I mean, my God, we get enough of that already. And it's just ridiculous. And it really bothers me, to see that happening within the community. So I would just ask that people look past that. If somebody uses your work, great. But stop the accusations about theft and all this stuff. And I just don't know what else to say, because honestly, if Iwaranon goes away and he's thinking about it, that's going to be a big loss to the community. And, all because of a petty disagreement. It's just stupid. So I would hope that people, see through that, and anybody that is making those kind of accusations, tell them to get a life. All right, so cool. All right, guys, I think that's probably going to be about it for the YouTube side. We are going to go ahead and go over to the Rockfin side. And if you can join the Rockfin side, of course, you go over there and it's $9.99 a month, and you are able to get several creators. Most of the Flat Earth community is over there, so many that it's just huge at this point. And yeah, I just think it's a really good thing. So, Jeran, is there anything you want to say to the YouTube community before we cut out on them?
No, it's Bob's been running a Wednesday night show, so that's nice of him to do that. And yeah, come over to Rockfin. There's all kinds of good stuff, and there's going to be more people coming, so can't complain.
Yep, I totally agree. All right, so.
Oh, and then about talking about the free speech and what's going on with Rockfin, I do have an interview with the CEO coming up, I think next week. So I will definitely ask all those questions. Trust me.
Oh yeah, that's right. I have to go into the back room. I hate doing this. I should have had this up in the first place. I always have problems cutting off the last part of it.
Oh, yeah. Pin the button.
Right, let's go live. Let's go live, and then I will go into here. There we go. That's where I want to go. Okay, YouTube. Anyway, if you could join us over there, that's great. If not, then we will see you on Wednesday. And until then, be good to each other. Don't lie to each other. Open your mind, because there's truth inside. We'll see everybody over on Rockfin. Peace out, everybody.